Ham's got one of his Fedora Ham is in the house.
Fedora Ham in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Fedora Ham is in the house.
I was just gonna say this place is awesome.
Yeah,
this place is sick. 32 proof. It's sick.
Yeah, we've got it.
This is out of the can, so I got 30 more.
How many
more
of you?
beers
How
to
many
go.
of you had? Just so I can
Oh
get
no, this is it. No. I don't usually drink.
No, remember? Is that what you're saying?
What's it? Yeah, I don't drink and report usually.
Well, there's nothing to report. Games are off today. No big deal.
Put your hair
Let's
down.
pretend like this is a happy hour.
Well,
you know, that doesn't usually go well though.
Well,
I'm
that's
usually
all right.
on the happy hour.
Well, yeah. No, those concerns. I'm gonna wait till that glass is gone by about 3:30 and start asking you questions from stuff I heard on the happy hour just to see if you answer.
Let me tell you about Hassan Whiteside.
It's one time Hassan Whiteside. No.
There's probably a whole bunch of stories involving Hassan Whiteside. But this is our 1320 Kings Insider, James Ham, creator of the Kings Beat here, to talk Kings basketball. And James, let's start here. Obviously, this is a big moment for the Sacramento Kings. It's a huge moment for Kings fans. The first winning season solidified last night. The first winning season in 16 years.
You know, I didn't think I would live to see it, and I'm not that old, so I didn't think I would live to see it. But I think it's incredible what they've been able to do here, specifically on the road. The fact that they're 21-13 on the road and 21-14 at home. That's crazy to me. They've secured a 500 record on the road. They're the best road team in the Western Conference. It's crazy. I did not think that this would be how this team won because the home court advantage is so tremendous in Sacramento. Yeah. And so I figured that that's how they would get to this point. But to see them have an opportunity here to, again, secure a over 500 record on the road is just wild. They're 10-2 since the All-Star break. They just keep raising their level of play, and Mike Brown has just done a tremendous job.
Well, what do you kind of attribute that to, James? Because when I think of a team that plays well on the road, maybe it's like a football mentality. But I'm thinking defense, right? I'm thinking defense travels. Defense allows you to play well on the road. We've talked about how this team defensively is not what we want it to be, to say the least, right? But they find ways to win on the road. Like, is the offense that just overpowering at times? Like, what do you attribute to their success on the road?
You know, I think it really does come down to the one thing that Mike Brown has preached since the beginning of the season. Number one, we stay together. Like this team, when you're on the road, that's when NBA teams usually grow closer together. When you're at home, you guys go your separate ways. You're in your houses. It's kind of like if you live in a suburb, everyone closes their door and they're in their own house. Yeah. And every once in a while, everyone comes out and meets around in the neighborhood and does some sort of barbecue, but it's not that often. When you're on the road, you do all kinds of things together, whether you go to a museum together or you go to the movies together or you all go out to dinner. It's a way to bond and get closer. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is that Mike Brown every single day preaches to stay in the moment. They have a coach that works on just their mental preparation that focuses on keeping this group in the moment. And when you look at, again, this 10-2 record, each of these games are individual games. They're not a 12-game set. They're not looking at a 10-2 record. They're looking at 12 opportunities to win a game. And that's so huge to stay in the moment and to be be fully focused on what's in front of you. And he does not let them look far ahead. He doesn't let them get complacent. They break their season into 5-game stretches. So their goal is to go 3-2 or better in every 5-game stretch. And sure enough, here we are, cruising through the season, and they just keep going. They keep winning every 5-game series.
These dudes are 15 games over 500. 15 games over 500. We were praying for 5.
Remember, there was a time, though, I told you that I think this team is more of their win percentage than they are of how many games over 500. So I expected them at a certain point. I don't think that they would pace for 50, but 47, 48 looked like it was realistic because they had these plateaus that they kept hitting, and then all of a sudden they blow through the plateau. And we waited forever for them to get more than 4 games over 500, right? Yeah. They kept getting to 4, they couldn't get to 5. once they got over that, it was like a threshold that they needed to get past. And now we're seeing this team just go out there and, I mean, the Nets are a tough team.
Yeah.
Blew right through the Nets. So, like, it seems like every single game you're seeing this team grow and figure out new ways to win and figure out new players that fit into the puzzle, like Kessler Edwards. Like, all the time, they seem to be improving, which is not something you typically see this deep into a season.
Do you think the 40, 41, 42, while I don't believe he'll ever admit it, do you think that was weighing on Mike a little bit?
I don't
Just like let's get there, let's get this over with, and then now I can get on with the rest of my season.
I can honestly tell you, I talked to Mike Brown about the fact that the Kings had never, that only 2 coaches now in the history of the Sacramento Kings, 38 years of Sacramento, have posted a 500 record. Rick Adelman did it 8 times. No other coach had done it. Mike Brown was not aware of that stat, which when I take, if I'm taking a job and I look at that as a stat, like, man, Luke Walton is second all time in win percentage. Like, those are situations that you typically have a veteran coach look at and go, man, I'm just not going to be another speed bump. And he's taken it on and taken the challenge. And, like, he's kept them so focused every single day the entire season. He does not let off the gas.
And when you think about Mike Brown, he's talked that talk from day one.
Oh, yeah.
He came in with the famous line, I'm not here to coach in the regular season. I'm here to coach playoff games. And that was a bold statement considering Sacramento. It got laughed at around the country. But he said, this is what it is. And I think his fingerprints are all over this team with speaking, manifesting it, right? Speaking it into existence. Like saying, like, no, I bet he's saying right now, this isn't good enough. You got an opportunity to do more. I believe in your an opportunity to do more. And he continues to stay on these guys. But from the start, he was like, I'm here to coach playoff games, period. That's my job.
It's crazy when you look at his win percentage coming into Sacramento, 616 win percentage. Man, the first thing I thought was, what are you doing? Like, you're risking that win percentage to go to Sacramento because they, like, 500 is not even in the question, is not even in the equation. So it's like Todd Hilton plays his entire career in Colorado. Why leave? Like, I can bat 360 at home. Like, why leave? Because the second I leave here, I'm no longer an incredible player. I'm an average, normal, everyday player. If I keep staying here, him, Larry Walker, you know, they that stadium in itself, like, allowed them to be that great. And if I'm Mike Brown, I'm looking at, like, if I'm going to taint my record as a head coach, the one team that I can almost guarantee that I'm going to taint my record is if I go to Sacramento. And the fact that he's taking that, I'm like, here he is at like a 606 win percentage, and he's got an opportunity to get up to a 612 win percentage or a 616 win percentage in Sacramento. It's crazy. It's unheard of. They're pacing for like 49.9 wins. And I don't know how he's doing it. I don't think it's smoke and mirrors. This is a really good team that goes out and plays hard every single night, and they're hanging tough. And I didn't expect it.
And you know what? Real quick, Dave. You saying all that, which is 100% correct. He's actually kind of maybe bet on himself, and he solidified himself as a head coach that he probably couldn't do anywhere else, right? Because he was 616 winning percentage.
Yeah.
You had LeBron, you had Kobe. Like you're not that good of a coach. And number one, to do it out with those 2 guys, but then come do it in Sacramento, that has elevated him as a coach to a level that I don't think he could have been elevated anywhere else in the league with any other job.
Yeah, I think what it does is it puts him in the conversation to be like a Hall of Fame coach. Like we've talked about Sabonis, like you start picking up more All-Star games. Next thing you know, you're at like 6, you're at 8 All-Star appearances. You're probably a Hall of Famer. I think Mike Brown had basically got to a point in his career where, number one, he was taken for granted. Like a lot of people around the NBA, you know, I've heard people say, well, I just don't think Mike Brown's that good of a coach. Man, how wrong are they? At this point, like, he's just showing it. How wrong are you? He didn't have an all-star on this team. He made 2 players into all-stars. Sabonis was an all-star in the past, but it had been a couple of years. He got him back to the point where he's an all-star. De'Aaron Fox, not only has he taken Fox and made him into an all-star, he's made him into a potential all-NBA player. He's made him into one of the better players in the NBA. And to be able to elevate a player, and he'll tell you every step of the way, Fox is coachable, Sabonis is coachable. And the fact that those 2 are coachable has given him a much longer leash with everyone else. If those guys weren't willing to take the coaching, then it would have been just another situation. But again, like he's proven himself here in the first year. Now he needs to have longevity. He needs to be here long enough. He needs to like coach out his contract. You know how many coaches I've covered that get paid 2 or 3 years after leaving Sacramento? Like Luke Walton made $5 million this year. I think it's $6 million this year.
Shout out Luke.
He's not dead.
No. Well, he's in Cleveland. That's close.
Wow.
I'm just saying, but
Been there. I mean, it's not wrong. I've been there.
You didn't have to say it.
Yeah. So there was a season where I covered Dave Yeager in his first year. Dave Yeager was under contract. George Karl was still under contract. Ty Corbin was still under contract. Michael Malone was still under contract. They're paying all these guys 1 year. All these head
That's
coaches.
not even counting general managers that might be getting paid too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that it works is when you get fired in the NBA, these are guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
When are they free? When are they? Because it ain't this year. When
Oh,
are they?
Vlade's still getting paid.
That's what I'm saying. When are they free to just pay
next year.
the GM and the coach they have?
Yeah.
So got next year too, right?
No. I think this is the final year, Luke Walton. And they extended Vlade. Again, that's crazy. I didn't even think about it. Vlade will get paid for next year as well. Because they had extended him to match Luke Walton's 4 years. And so this is the last year they're getting paid. But even in itself, I mean, Monty McNair's been on the job since it was like September 17th, 2020. Yeah.
You know, it'd be cool if Vlade was actually making more than money for not being the general manager of the Kings.
Oh, I'm going to guarantee you that's a fact.
I can believe it.
Like,
Well, it was probably not for Monty's next contract.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Contract.
This year, I guarantee you Vlade's making more.
Oh.
Yeah. Facts.
All he wanted was a couple of courtside tickets to come watch the game. That's it. It's probably easier for Mike Brown to win some games. It's probably easier for the Sacramento Kings to get to 42 wins and this win percentage that you talk about when you got a guy like Domantas Sabonis putting up ridiculous numbers like he had last night, 24, 21, and 5, in just routinely getting triple doubles, routinely having obnoxious 17 rebound games. That's got to make things a little bit easier on Mike.
Yeah, I mean, 21 rebounds last night. I had someone like, hey, his assist numbers were low. It's like, okay, well, did you not notice all of the missed shots by his teammates?
Yeah.
Like they shot 41%, and how many open threes did they miss? It was a ton. So he should have had another triple-double, but you know, triple-doubles are really, they're based on what your teammates do. And Sabonis has been very clear that he couldn't do any of this without his teammates. But like what he's been able to accomplish, he's spectacular. Like every single night, he's a hard hat guy. He comes out there and brings his lunch pail and goes to work. How many times did he get hit in the head? How many offensive rebounds did he get? Like where he's battling 5 guys and the refs in the middle of the key and not getting a single call, getting mugged, getting hit in the head, and grabbing another rebound. Like what he's been able to accomplish, and it's the consistency that he brings to the table to me that's so incredible. Like you can have guys who put up big numbers, and you can have guys that like at the end of the year you're looking at their stats. Even a guy like not to call it one guy out, but like Julius Randle's stats. Like Julius Randle puts up triple doubles on occasion, but to have a player like Domas that every single night it's 18, 12, and 6, and that's just what you write in pen.
Yeah.
You know, if you can pin in things in the NBA, you're going to be a good team.
Absolutely. Do you think he gets MVP votes? Because we were trying to figure this out. It goes to 5th place, right?
Oh yeah, he's getting MVP votes. Yeah, I don't know. He's not going to be in the running,
Right.
but he will get
fourth or
MVP.
fifth
Yeah,
place.
without any question, in my opinion. I mean, you're the second seed in the Western Conference. You're averaging, what is it, 19, leading the league in reboundings at like 12.6, and he's at 7.2, 7.3 assists per game. Like he's an MVP caliber player. Second in the league in triple doubles with 11. First in the league in double doubles with 56, 57 now. It's just incredible. When he doesn't have a double double, you're just like, what in the world happened? You're like, oh, how in the world did he not get a double double tonight? And it's happened here and there, but it's one game and then he starts another streak.
You think De'Aaron gets any votes?
Maybe. No,
Fifth
honestly,
place.
he might get a vote or two. But like, he's not going to be in the running. But like when we talk about All NBA, I think he's definitely in the conversation at this point. He's got an uphill battle just because there's so many good guards in the league. But I can make the case for it without any problems. He's got a much better record than Shea or Dame. He's stayed out of trouble where Jaw's gotten all kinds of trouble. And Kyrie, like Kyrie did major damage to the league early in the season or before the season started. And sure, he's been really good, but he's also played for two teams. He's a better player than Trey. You look at Trey's stats, you're like, oh my gosh, like dude's averaging like 26 and 10. He's a much better player than Trey Young. And then I think it's whether Jaylen Brown is a forward or he's a guard, because there are some guys that are just in, like Luka Doncic, Donovan Mitchell are locks. Whether Steph Curry is an All NBA player, it's really going to come down to whether he plays enough games. But even still, his team's not very good either. Yeah, so he'll be there.
You're listening to D-Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento, 98.5 FM KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app, live from 32 Broome Street inside Sky River Casino. Our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham, here with us. Kyle Madsen going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. Hammer, you talking about De'Aaron Fox right there. Let's talk about his performance last night, because it wasn't one of the big 32, 38, 40-plus point games. It wasn't one of the big fourth quarter Fox moments. But even with that shot not falling, it feels like he found a lot of different ways to contribute, including get to the line. And he now has a season's worth of a fourth quarter resume, to where if De'Aaron is 0 of 18 heading into the fourth quarter, the defense can't do anything about it. They have to stay glued to him during those final 12 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, his performance in the fourth quarter is just otherworldly. Like what he's been able to accomplish is nuts. You're counting on him every single night to do something great, and almost every night he does. And even if it's a game like, the Brooklyn game where he didn't put up huge numbers, he still performed. He still put up double-digit scoring. And not only that, but he has a knack for finding players in late game situations and giving them an opportunity to shine as well. And he just continues to plug away. Like if you talk about locks for postseason awards, I don't know how we're going to look at the Jerry West Award now as far as Mr. Clutch. Like, is it going to be elevated to some like below Defensive Player of the Year or above Defensive Player of the Year, or right there with Sixth Man of the Year or above that? But whatever that award is, like the inaugural trophy is going to De'Aaron Fox without any question. I mean, he's averaging like 5.3 points in the clutch, which clutch is 5 minutes left in the game that's within 5 points. I mean, he's so much better than every other player in the NBA. He scored so many more points in the clutch than any other player. It's not even close. It's like 100 more points in the clutch. And he's got his team that's a perennial loser with 42 wins with another 14 games remaining. Is it 14, 13, 14?
I think it's 13.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I lose count.
I don't know.
Well, he has now, like, his work in the fourth quarter has just been, as you said, it's just been incredible. It's certified. And one of our themes throughout the day has been the bench. I feel like this bench has the capability of being the difference between going to the playoffs and advancing in the playoffs. And we saw it again last night in a game that was essentially just a fight. in which there was a stretch where the Kings weren't making shots. Brooklyn wasn't making shots either. It was Malik Monk. It was Kessler Edwards. It was guys in that second unit who did a good job of keeping things moving when De'Aaron wasn't cooking, when Kevin Huerter was out. And, man, I feel like this bench could be what really separates them as we head into the second season here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the bench is going to have to be good because a lot of these players like Fox and, even Harrison Barnes hasn't been there for years. Herter's been to the playoffs recent years, but Malik Monk, like a lot of these guys, they're looking at like, man, we got to get into the playoffs. We got to get into the playoffs. Once you get into the playoffs, like, all right, now you got 7 more games. Like, what's your body look like? How much gas do you have left in the tank? And it's going to be a major question for a lot of these guys. What, good teams you can see they go for it early in their first couple of years when they're building, right? So you'll see a team like the Warriors go for like that incredible season where it was 73. Well, they lost and they didn't win the championship that year, and they realized that what that getting there costs you and winning that many games costs you isn't worth it. So they scale back. Well, the Kings are still in that first stage where they're learning they're just trying to get there, and they're trying to win as many games as possible, and they're going to exert all of their energy all the way through the season. You look at the final 2 games of the season. If the Kings have locked up the second seed, I don't see them taking a break against Golden State and Denver. I don't. And is that a mistake? Probably is. Like, if you let your guys rest and get ready for the next 7 games that they're going to play, then you're probably going to do yourself a favor. But that's not where this team is. This team is still learning. They're still growing. They're still in that process of how many games can we win? And they don't have the luxury of throttling back because there are teams all around them. But this is one of those moments where I think this team they're learning on the fly. They're learning who they are and what they can be. You talk about the bench play. That's where it comes in. Like late in the season, if this bench can carry them through a couple of games. I had someone get mad at me last night because my 6 quick thoughts, I didn't have Malik Monk. I'm like, well, how am I going to have Malik Monk when Kessler Edwards plays his first game back in Brooklyn, when Trey Lyles is coming back off a suspension and has a tremendous, 10 points and 7 rebounds, or when Keegan Murray is waking up out of his shell and you're starting to see him figure out okay, I got to play defense and I've got to rebound, do all these things. So I think at a certain point, maybe I have to do 8 quick thoughts, but I'm not going to. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and just because you got to score 140 and everyone scores in double figures, not everyone gets mentioned. That's not the way it goes. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. This bench is good. Kessler Edwards is bringing something different. And, kudos to him for showing up and figuring out how to fit in and looking confident. If you look at him versus KZ Okpala, he doesn't hesitate. KZ always hesitated. And that's the difference between being in the league and not being in the league. Edwards has looked at this as an opportunity and said, all right, you will get so many opportunities. I'm ready. And so for him to step in this late in the season with this group of players, it says something about him, but it also says something about the team and their willingness to accept another player and to work around that player's parameters and who they are and try to make them better. And so I think it's really cool. It's organic. This team is growing, and it's really cool to watch.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to ask about Kessler Edwards. And I know all year long we talked about Kings soft season or trading, whatever, and need to find that wing or whatever. And I want to know what you think. I look at Kessler Edwards and I'm like, this guy, he might be able to fill the bill, right? He fits the profile physically. He fits the profile for the most defensively he does. I want to see his shot get a little better to be a 3-and-D wing like that. But you know what I keep thinking about, and it's ironic because they have, similarities with college. I keep thinking about Doug Christie, right? And when Doug Christie was brought into Sacramento, he wasn't looked at as a savior. He was a good ball player. And they're he's a cool little starting 2 guard. He's cool, but nobody looked at least I don't remember, nobody looking at Doug Christie like what he ended up being here in Sacramento and how vital and important he was. I'm not saying Kessler Edwards for sure is going to be like Doug Christie, but I keep getting those type of vibes.
Yeah, so like I'm someone who knows Doug's story pretty well, and Doug's drafted by Seattle, and they had already told Seattle don't draft him because he's not coming there. He had a personal issue with both Wally Walker and with George Karl coming into the league, and Seattle drafted him anyways. Then they waited halfway through the season. They traded him to the Lakers. He gets to the Lakers and he's just buried. There's so many guards on that team. He has to wait around and not get doesn't get to play. He gets traded to the Knicks. The Knicks tell him, like Pat Riley pulled him into the office on day one and said, "Hey, look, man, we like you, but you're never going to play here." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "We already got John Starks. We're loaded at the Allen Houston at the shooting guard position. We're loaded. You're not going to get to play." And so he ends up in Toronto and finds his way. Like there are certain players that's their path to the league. The fact that the Kings were able to pick up a young, like 22-year-old guy who fits exactly the parameters of a player that they need, and they not only did they land him, but they got him for not even free. The Nets actually paid the Kings to take Kessler Edwards on.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but at the same time, like you can't look at Kessler Edwards in year one as like a savior player. If he ends up being that player, that's one thing. But when they traded for him, it's not like Monty McNair said, "Oh, this is the guy that's going to fix everything and he's going to play 20 something." I mean, the first 12 games he played a total of 34 minutes. That tells you what like sort of they thought like he wasn't going to be the savior. He's a guy that can fit. Maybe if they get in a weird situation, they need his length or whatever. So like I like the comparison to Doug because he is long, he is athletic, he plays within himself, he understands his role and all that stuff. But it's on Kessler to take that and to take another step. Mike Brown has told us every step of the way. Like I don't know Kessler Edwards that well at all, and until he gets to know him, he's not going to play him serious minutes. And then all of a sudden, Kessler just he keeps building off his success. And so kudos to him for being a really good player. And kudos for Monty McNair to go out and find a player that may fit a profile. But I'm not going to like sit here and say that like Monty McNair's idea was to trade for Kessler Edwards so he could play 25 minutes a night and be one of the top 8 guys in the rotation and to dominate. That wasn't the point of view. They looked at a bunch of guys around this skill level, around this talent level, guys like Darius Baisley, and this is a guy they could get, and they got him for free, and then a couple of $1 million on top of it. So not even for it's like a good deal. The fact that he's worked out, like let's give him a couple of years to see how he grows into something. But look at him as like a versatile player who can play the 2, 3, 4, and he can fill in here and there. And if he develops into something more, good for the Kings, good for him. But we can't like put so much on a player who's young and hasn't lived up to these expectations in the past and doesn't have a track record for it.
Look at Lemonti. He was telling West, "Hey, this dude Kessler Edwards. When we play Brooklyn, let's trade for him now because when we play Brooklyn, he's going to help us get our 42nd win. He is Lemonti."
Do you think he starts?
I think there's a good chance. I like when we start seeing Kessler and Keegan Murray on the court together. Like they talked about it in last night's game, like it just happened. It happened the game before too, where you start seeing those 2 guys on the court together. And the difference is they're just both so long. And Kessler is way more athletic than some of the other players that you have on this roster. So I think that there's a possibility he starts. I was intrigued when Mike said that Keon Ellis is going to get called up and he could start. That Terrence Davis could get a look. I think they'll start with Terrence. And if Terrence steps up and fills a role like he has in the past, then they'll probably stick with Terrence. If and that's for however long, we're going to miss Herter for.
Yeah.
I don't think Herter is going to be out that long. It's a very mild strain in his hamstring, and the team was very concerned. I had conversations last night. Their initial concern was that he had done something to a knee or possibly an ankle, and then when they got it back, that it was like a mild hamstring strain. It's like a deep, sigh of relief. But at the same time, it's one of those things this deep into the season, you have to understand the mileage is on Kevin Herter, and he's probably going to need at least a couple of games here to recover. So you're going to have to, ask someone else to step up.